Hi, everyone. I am super excited to be here. This is another episode of Platformers, and I am super excited about today's guest. But before I'll tell you about him, maybe I should mention my name. So, my name is May Baseron. I am a platform engineer at Forder, and I am excited about platform engineering and Kubernetes specifically. Even my bottle has like the Kubernetes sticker. And now is a good time to say hi to our guest, Hans Kristian Flaatten. Did I say it correctly?
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. So Hans here, he's a platform engineer, but not only that, he's also a CNCF ambassador. Today, he works at the Norwegian government, which I find to be super exciting to talk about technical stuff in the government sector. But I think you can present yourself even better. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, Hans? And thank you for coming.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on. So, as you mentioned, my name is Hans. I work for the Norwegian government, where I build platforms, specifically for the Labor and Welfare Administration. It's a mouthful, we know, so we just call it NAV for short, NAV. I've been an enthusiast of open source technology all my life, really, and sort of really early on got involved with the Node.js community, and after a while got involved with the CNCF and Kubernetes community, and really love to tinker with new technologies. I'm a CNCF ambassador. I'm a Google developer expert and a Grafana champion. So I really love being involved with lots of different new and shiny stuff. So, and I have 3 kids. Some of them are home, so if they pop by, then they will just have to wave and say hi here on the street.
Do they know already how to take some tasks off your Jira or
Well, so I believe behind me here, I do think I have the children's guide, illustrated guide to Kubernetes. I believe there are two or three of those, so we have read through those. So
Alrighty, okay, that sounds very cool. So why don't you tell us, why are you here today? What do you want to share with us? I assume it's about that platform that you were talking about. Hint, hint.
Yeah, absolutely. And sort of the state of how we run platforms here in the Norwegian government, and then specifically the platform that I'm building for NAV.
Okay, that sounds good. So why don't you tell us, what is it? Like, what is platform engineering in the public sector? And also maybe tell us, how does it differ from the private sector, if at all?
So it's a very good question. So platform engineering is, of course, enabling and our applications and application teams in order to sort of be high performing and being able to take care of their applications, their products, and sort of deliver on that without having all of this all the red tapes and going through all of the different hoops and people, and just concentrate on building good products rather. How does it differ from the private sector? I've been working a lot in the financial sector as a consultant primarily, and it doesn't really differ too much from those organizations that I've been involved with. Of course, in financial sector, they do have long horizons. They tend to sort of know that the bank will stick around for a long time, but they do have to sort of be more conscious about the shorter this fiscal quarter, and there are certain events happening, etc. That isn't too much of a concern in the government. Of course, we want to deliver as quickly as possible, but we really know that we are in here for the long haul. We are really sort of if we need so, we can take the time to make this properly and not having to rush it out because we need to meet some quarter and some end or some report or something. Sometimes there might be that as well, but in most cases we can actually then say that we have a quite long horizon here, so let's not rush it and rather sort of try to do it right from the beginning.
Okay, so when you said, okay, when I asked what is a platform engineering, what is a platform engineering in the public sector, but in general, you said what is it? But why don't you go into a bit more details of how does it work? And here, even maybe here there will be more specifics for the public sector, and maybe not because it's a public sector, maybe it's because it's like a big a big system that is constructed of smaller particles, and maybe is it like, why is it good for that case, right?
Yeah, so we have, at least in my organization, we're quite a large platform teams. We have about 20 engineers working on building that application platform. We have been doing this for close to 10 years, and we started building up our container-based, Kubernetes-based application platform on our on-premise environment, and then gradually sort of we have expanded that into a cloud environment as well. So we are currently running a little bit like 50% of the workload in each of these clusters, and a total of 2,000 applications inside on this platform here. So and then we have roughly 150 teams, application teams that's sort of working on this platform here day to day. So of course, everybody cannot work on all of the different pieces as one. So we typically we are self-organizing in that regard, that we are picking sort of tasks that we want to work with, which different areas of the platform that we are working with at any time, rather, and then working in smaller pairs, rather, and trying not to sort of work too much alone and sort of being the only one that knows this area of the platform. We are also a little bit special that this is a completely distributed team as well. Most of my colleagues are located on the east coast of Norway, near Oslo, but a few of us are located elsewhere as well. I'm on the west coast of Norway, but this is a completely remote team. As in day to day, we are using Zoom and GitHub and Slack and all of these collaboration tools in order to get the job done. And really, sort of when we have that many developers that we are catering to, sort of being a digital first and team sort of allows us to be very approachable and be very sort of close to the developers regardless of where they are. So I believe sort of from the developer point of view that they feel that we are there.
So it feels like you're telling us that you're providing more than just the tools, like, because I think that most of the time when I think about a platform engineering or a developer platform, like I think about the tools that I'm providing that is is aimed at enabling the development velocity, but from what you're saying, it feels like you're providing more than that. Is it
absolutely
true that what it is that you provide?
Yeah. So of course the tools are very big part of it, but they need to sort of work together, and it's everything that the developers really need to build, deploy, and operate their applications. So it's the entire life cycle there, and aiming to automate as much as possible and alleviate sort of the manual burdens that the developer or someone else's would have to have if it were not for the platform. So of course it starts with the developers working locally in their editor, and we have a manifest that sort of describes how the application is supposed to be run in our platform. So rather than having to learn all the nitty-gritty details about Kubernetes, we have a higher level abstraction that they need to care about, and it's only what's really necessary for that application. It can be long, of course, depending on how complex the application is, but really sort of the bare minimum in order to have this actually running on our platform. And then from there, once it's up and running, we have developer portal where they can sort of view their applications and the status of them. It's integrating with databases and storage systems and getting that on demand, as well as sort of monitoring system and alerting. So we try to unify all of this in order to sort of having a good developer experience, and so where all of these different tools, they work together and sort of form a cohesive platform.
But also that it would be cohesive between the different agencies in the government?
That as well. So we are not there completely yet. So we we are using this platform that we have built and refined for the past 10 years, and now we are exporting it to the rest of the Norwegian government. So a lot of our colleagues have already sort of been using Kubernetes for some time, or they're looking into it. All of them are having sort of platform engineering as something that's really important for them, or developer experience rather as something that's really important for them, because it's very hard to get sort of government in a box, sort of being an agency and sort of just like, oh, we're just buying all of the tools off the shelf. It doesn't really exist. Some of them you can buy. Most of them you need to contract or build yourself in order to sort of cater to the laws and regulations and what the agency is supposed to do. So having a good developer experience, regardless if it's your own developers or it's a contractor, is really top of mind. And what we have now in the final sort of run up to is getting our platform sort of officially approved in order to sort of be able to cater to the rest of the Norwegian government as well. Because we have a lot of smaller agencies. While we are the largest, and there are some other large agencies as well, there are a lot of smaller ones that really don't have the manpower and shouldn't really sort of reinvent the wheel, and that sort of fits perfectly into sort of the model that we have already built, where we have sort of teams that are autonomous and can sort of be responsible for their own applications, and it sort of it doesn't really sort of if we have 150 teams today, if we have 250, doesn't really matter for us. The platform is it's almost completely automated at this point, sort of the operations of it and sort of how we build and deploy the platform itself. So yeah.
So you're going in the direction of replicating that structure that you have in this agency that you're part of, which you're saying that is the biggest or one of the biggest, and now you want to start to spread it around. Did it require from you, or I don't know, like personally or from the team, right, to build some sort of a plan, of like an adoption plan, migration plan, and also did you already get into the buy-in pool? Because it can be pretty deep and you can drown trying to get buy-in from new customers, which are the developers or development teams in other agencies.
Yeah.
So did you need to change the plan, and also did you already start to look for buy-in?
So let me just rewind to sort of when we started building this platform internally, and actually sort of we adopted this cake-driven adoption or marketing strategy rather, because the teams in the at least for a year, maybe longer, new teams, they got cake. So sort of we changed to sort of, are we willing to sort of do this migration here to sort of, do I want cake? And most of our developer teams, they really enjoy cake. So they just like, okay, I can containerize this manifest here, and now we deploy it, and it's really easy peasy lemon squeezy, and now my team gets cake. So that was really for some time, that was sort of the strategy there. And then it sort of, the ball really started rolling, and sort of you had very quickly then sort of enough mass to that other teams were like, oh, but they are doing that, there must be something in it. The FOMO really started kicking in.
So people heard about it, and from the good experience. So I mean, that's wonderful. I think everyone would love to have this kind of buy-in, like, oh, they heard about it already, I don't even need to go knock on people's doors, which can be difficult. Do you think that you're gonna need at some point, are you planning, or again, when I say you, I don't mean you personally, but generally, the team that is leading that, do you think that it's important that you get more agencies to buy into this platform? Do you think that it can somehow affect the effectiveness of the platform? Is it important to have more volume in order for that to be better, or not really?
And so we don't really feel that we need more volume, really, but that we can take on that. And sort of as
Mm.
a big part of the Norwegian government, we feel that sort of this is, if we can bring value outside of our agency, that's really important as well. So back to sort of the having buy-in, sort of we already sort of have lot of sort of excitement in the other agencies, because we have been talking about what have been happening at our agency and what we are doing. So we already have sort of built up quite a buzz around the platform. We actually have people joining our agency because they heard about it and heard how cool it was to be a developer there. And so we really feel that there is buzz here, but definitely it needs to be sort of a buy-in from at least certain level of management. So that is currently what we are working on. Luckily, we have some great contacts, and we are able to sort of get into the right meetings. So we are confident that we can at least get some more agencies there, and maybe we get the ball rolling there once they see that it's not that scary. It didn't fall over, and we're still up and running. So
So it's kind of like you can say, and by the way, people here that are here with us in this live, you're more than welcome to ask questions. I'm here all over the place because I'm excited and I want to know everything that Hans have to share with us. But please interrupt me at any time and ask more questions. We want to hear what you guys think and want to know. So from what I understand, Hans, is that you're saying, okay, we have this type of buy-in where it comes, first of all, bottom up because the developers heard about it from each other. And then now you still need to get the management level on board. And how do you plan to get them on board? Because I think that it's not enough, in my opinion. And if someone in the audience wants to chime in and say something about buy-in, because this is a pain point, in my opinion. Like you build something great, wonderful. How do you get the developers to use it? So, and also the management, like if the developers, they love it, but how do you get the management to agree to put in some time and effort to do that migration, to do that integration into their systems. So how are you going to do that to get buy-in from management level?
So we have some really cool case studies where we have partnered with sort of the research organization in order to study how this platform and this way of working, because it's two things that goes hand in hand. It's the platform, and then it's sort of building your applications and the way that you are building it in order to leverage such a platform. And we have some quite nice research in that area. So we are really hoping to lean on sort of being data driven and really highlighting and showcasing with real world examples what this is actually doing. And we have similarly not similar in that sense that we have proper research, but we have studies as well, or cases as well, where we can actually show how much this platform is saving us, and sort of how less costly an application on such a platform is compared to sort of the more legacy and traditional way of running our applications. So we can both of these two can be will be leveraged, and what we are leveraging in order to sort of get that sales pitch there. Yeah.
So I'm glad that you mentioned that, because my next question is like, is it really good? Like, how do you know it's good? What were the things that that you saw, the benefits? Was it mainly cost? Were there anything else other than that? And how did you measure it?
So the measurement, even though it's not too science fiction, or too not science fiction, too regular, but on certain intervals we do sort of check-ins and surveys of our user base, so our developers. And what's most important is sort of the developer happiness. Sort of our developers, are our users happy? Yay or nay? Sort of are you happy using this platform? And it's overwhelmingly yes. This is so much better compared to how we used to be working.
You
So
use questionnaires, or how do you how did
yes,
you measure
that is questionnaires, and then we have some in-depth interviews with certain teams
Okay.
as well to get
questionnaires
understand
and
more of
in-depth
their
interviews?
workflow. Yeah.
I do want to say that we do have like 3 questions here from the people watching, and I'm gonna not take them by order, but I will get to all of them. So one of the question is, how do your users interact with your platform? Is it web portal, GUI, API, CLI?
Yeah, so that's a really, really good question. So it's primarily using APIs in that sense that we are integrating directly. So we very early on moved on to GitHub, and I was very natural, or all natural, that sort of we are using GitHub Actions once those became available to us, and that we had native integrations there. So you didn't need another tool. You could just build, push your code, and GitHub Actions started building it according to how you wanted, and you could push it to the correct environment or deploy it to the correct environment directly from there. And that's sort of been the mantra going sort of from very early on, that sort of we need to have those APIs, and the developers also needs to be able to access those, and then sort of building higher order components on top of that. Sort of some prefer CLIs to be working. We very recently introduced a proper web portal where you can view and consume sort of the how your applications are running, but in underneath it all, it's API driven, and that's sort of a very key pillar to how we are building.
So you started by investing in the APIs. So from there you can grow to having that web portal that you're talking about, and also a CLI. Was that something that was requested? How did they work before that?
Yeah, so it was sort of an organic request that certain operations is too tedious. Let us please give us easier ways to do that. And again, sort of since our main audience is developers, and developers are quite tech savvy, and they tend to sort of like, oh, we want to use it slightly different than the other team. So having only a UI, while some might prefer a UI, and that's perfectly okay, most of our developers really prefer something a little bit lower level, and a CLI is a good example, because you can script it no matter how if you sort of, oh, I'm shelling out from this programming, or I use Bash, or I integrate it into my GitHub Actions. Sort of a CLI is something that you can interface with in a certain way, and similar with the APIs as well. So it's really important that we have those, because we really don't want to limit sort of, oh, you can only access, or you can only work with a platform in this way here. You cannot integrate with a different tool that might come along, because what we see is sort of that there isn't really very rarely at least, one tool to fit them all, at least when we are running at our scale. Some prefer IntelliJ, some prefer Visual Studio Code, some prefer Vim, and different tools altogether. So we need to be able to have that sort of, not all of the tools, of course, but at least some of them. And if we then provide an API and provide proper interfaces, that allows us to actually integrate those.
So I think that now I want to address another question that we have here. And as I said, it's not by order. I will get to all of the questions that we have here. But someone asked, do you think that velocity is critical to public sector management as much as it is critical for tech-driven companies? And I want to say also, like, because you talked a lot about the cost, that is something that you present to management, like the cost reduction and efficiency. But what about velocity, or even development velocity? Is it something that is also critical for them?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a little bit harder to measure velocity, because sort of where do you start? Sort of, is it from the ID? And some parts is really, really hard to not to measure, but some of these value chains can be quite long, because you need to then go to the sort of the law governing body and sort of request that there is a change in this law, because sort of we need to be more agile and so forth, and that can take really, really long time. So it's really hard to sort of measure the velocity in a good way. But yes, definitely, and sort of shorten the cycles, shorten the time it takes to actually, once you know that you are building something, or you have an idea that we are going to build this, how long what is the time it takes that to get that out in the hands of the users, and we are constantly working on getting that down and down and down, and sort of cutting out sort of all of these manual, tedious testing environments to sort of the minimum, where we sort of recommend the teams that you at least in the platform here, you get one test environment and you get one production environment, and we really sort of that should be enough, because once you sort of introduce more test environments, you introduce a lot more complexity to keep those in sync, and we all know that there is only one production environment, so the sooner you get your code into production.
Okay, we do have lots more questions. I love it that we have excited people here. Yay! All right, it's good audience. So also somebody here asked, hi Hans, what are you trying to solve with your platform which existing tools are not solving? And I think it's a very good question, because it's not that we didn't do things beforehand, and it's not, at least in my opinion, I feel like it's not like it's something that is so revolutionary. It's like taking something from end to end, but and also improving something so subtle that is maybe even a bit more difficult to measure, like developers experience or developer velocity. So how do you address that?
Yeah, so at least if we rewind 10 years when we actually started building this platform, there were very few platforms that did anything in this. At that point, at least in my neck of the woods, it was still sort of, you had your ops team that were sort of doing at least the infrastructure and also the application operations as well, and you had QA teams in the middle, and it was really sort of this siloed handover, and sort of the tools we had and were available to us at that time did not allow for this developer first mindset, where the developers could become sort of the product team that sort of took the end-to-end responsibility there. So at least at that point, that was.
I'm sorry if I cut you, but I want to.
No. Yeah.
Good. Okay, the developers, they have their own. They have their job. Why are they interested in that shift left thing? Like, why do they want to have that responsibility?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, so at least it's sort of for my not only understanding, but sort of seeing this in real life, is that they take a lot of pride in what they do, and sort of I have an example from banking industry. I won't name the name, but sort of it was sort of they noticed a very subtle CSS bug when it went into production, and then it took 6 months to fix that, because that was the sort of the length of having something going into production. There were so many hoops and sort of on these, and that was actually how Nav as well operated, where we had quarterly releases. So, and that's maybe the most frustrating to any builder, is just sit there and you have built something, it's really beautiful, and then you just have to sit on your hands and wait for this to become available. So I believe sort of that pride there, and also we see that sort of being sort of, instead of having this very, very huge machine, or where all of these silos and only sort of taking a little bit part of the responsibility, that sort of dissolves the responsibility from it, because like, oh, I'm just a developer here, someone else do the QA, someone else do so it's not my problem. So now it is your problem, it is your team's ownership. You don't need to care yourself about all of the other 1,999 applications. You only need to care about your application, your domain, your product. That is what you need to care about, and that doesn't really end once you have sort of written a code. It ends when the functionality is running in production and it's running correctly, and the users can actually use it and get benefit from it. That is when sort of, that is the definition of done, and that really sort of resonates, not with everyone, but a lot of our developers. It really resonated that I can take ownership here, and that's actually what's differentiating us with I wouldn't say competitors, but others. People are applying to work at this part of the government, because we have been enabled to achieve that, where you can take that ownership and actually
Yeah.
be proud of what you're doing, and sort of, I have this really good idea, this is how I really believe this is how we should do it, and you can actually do it. And
So
trying to limit
think
that
that,
amount of
yeah,
red tape.
it sounds really good, because I think, to sum it up, I would say that the way I see it, what you did there not only helped the development velocity and the time that it takes to work on something, or test it or look into it, but it also helped you on getting better or more human resources, which we all know that is it's a difficult thing to get new hires, and if you get people coming knocking on your door, I think it's a good thing. And
Yeah.
this is one of the things. This is one of the benefits of having happy developers, because they tell each other, and they bring more other developers who also wants to be happy. So I want to address another question that we have over here around compliance, and how do you deal with regulatory changes? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is a really important question, and so glad that you asked that, Josh. So what we did, that we changed the organization. Instead of sort of being sort of, you have to go through all of these hoops, into sort of, how can we be supportive? We actually changed the pyramid. So the rest of sort of those who were doing sort of the regulatory checks, they now sort of become your supporters, and they want to sort of enable you and be able to sort of provide you with the best practice, the documentation, the tools that you need in order to stay compliant. Because of course, that is the box that you are bound by. Sort of, these are the laws and regulations. We cannot go outside that. We can be very creative within those, but that is an absolute requirement.
So you work closely with them?
Yeah, really, really close with and we bring in, we try to, as much as it's possible, bring the people with this expertise. So that would be sort of especially sort of our lawyers, bring them into the product team, so they are part of the product team, so that it's not sort of like you need to send off some request, and weeks, months, maybe someone will pick it up and totally not understand what you're talking about. Someone that's sort of in with your team and part of your team as much as possible, that you can talk with. And what they are doing is then translating these laws and regulations that are written very tediously and written in, because it should be sort of that's the way it is, but then translating it to the line of work, the welfare and social services that we are providing, and giving more context with sort of with examples and sort of around the tools and technologies and the practices that we are using, and translating those and sort of making it easier in that regard. Also sort of providing tools to do risk assessment, to sort of how we document it, and sort of allowing those mechanisms and those parts of the process to be self-service, to where the team can start owning to,
so not only work with the people, but also to automate that. That's actually important, in my opinion, because I think that's one of those things that can make those development processes to go in the slower realm, I guess. So now we're half an hour in, or a bit longer than that, and I think it's a very good time to start wrapping things up. And this is why I want to address this question, which was one of the first ones. And it says, what's the next big thing on your roadmap to improve the platform? We all want to know, what are you planning?
Yeah, so we talked about it already, but sort of exporting this to the rest of the government is really, really high up on sort of my to-do, and sort of what I really, really wish, because we see that this is what we have been able to achieve, and some of the things that we have been able to solve. It's still an open question for a lot of our sort of other agencies. On the technology side, we are investing more and more into our developer platform. So again, sort of making it easier and easier to sort of get the view, get recommendations, get sort of this is what you need, and having helpful suggestions, because of course no matter sort of your abstractions, it's still complicated, and it's still you can still mess up and still be suboptimal. So having giving more hints and better feedback to our users, not sort of like, oh, this didn't work, but here are some suggestions. This is what we suggest that you do instead. Sort of in that way, again, making it nicer to be a developer, and that's why we call the platform Nice. I think I didn't mention that.
Really, that's the name of it. That's so nice.
Yeah.
You see what I did there? And, I think that it's a very good point for people to take from this conversation, although there were a lot of other good points. But I think that investing the next steps into getting good, providing good feedback to your users, I think it's a major pain point that not always gets the attention it should get, because at the end of the day, if your user understand what happened or what they need to do to get it to work, then it means that first of all they're happy, and second of all they're not going to come looking for you when you're having coffee. So I guess one last thing that I want to say, or no, not say, ask, do you love it?
Definitely, yeah. So this was actually my reason for joining this agency, was due to sort of this platform that they built for over the years, and also sort of a personal experience, because I remember back when so we have very good social and welfare services in Norway, especially around maternity and paternity leave. But sort of when I became a father for the first time, it was very tedious. You had to fill out this form. It was not exactly paper. It was a PDF. You had to fill it in. You had to sign it, scan it, and then you got it in return because you didn't understand the form correctly. And actually, the third time I became a father, all of this was had been digitized, and you just logged on with your bank ID, so the same sort of login system that you use for your online banking, very secure and very convenient. And you sort of like greeted with congratulations, this is what you are entitled to. How would you like to divide the money and the time that you are allowed between the mother and the father? And sort of the button didn't go green before it was the form and how you filled it out, drag and drop, and sort of setting up that calendar, because it couldn't. There are quite some change you can how you can divide this, and you can take 100% out or 80 and different ways, and you got helpful tips around the way, and that was actually one of the things that pushed me over, and sort of like they have really understood it. Things are starting to happening. It's not like, oh, we are planning this really great thing and it will be all rainbows and unicorns. This is actually happening. They are getting stuff into production, into my hands that I can start using, and I want to be part of that.
You want to? I know. I think this deserves a chapter of its own, but I'm not going to decide on a chapter all by myself. But I do think that talking about how developing in the public sector, developing things that you do in the public sector, how at the end of the day it affects you also as a citizen, and how it makes you think about that. And I guess, I already said it should be it should be another episode, and I'm not going to do the episode right now. Right now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask the dear audience if they have one last question that they want to ask, or you, Hans, if there is anything else that you would like to share with us, so we can wrap up soon. I see no more questions. But there were a lot. Okay, I have to give it up for this amazing audience. I love everyone here. That's beautiful. But thank you. Do you want to add anything or share anything before we wrap this up with everyone here that we didn't get to talk about yet?
So we have the platform. Of course, it's built on open source code. It's also open source. So if you go to Nice, that's spelled NAIS.io. That's the landing page for it. Links to our GitHub. We have a couple of hundred open source GitHub repositories just for the platform. And then we have I don't think it's 6,000, but a couple of thousand repositories that is building all of the welfare services out in the open as well. So we really sort of believe that sort of it's public
Wow.
money, the code should be public as well.
That's a beautiful saying and a great way to wrap this up and say thank you for joining us today. I enjoyed it. I honestly believe that with all of these questions, the audience enjoyed it as well. And yes, thank you.
Thank you so much. It was so lovely to be here.
All right. So that's time to say goodbye. Goodbye, everyone.